is Dr. Tanya first, then Shubhi, then we have Hemant, and then we have Devanshi, right? Yeah, so I thought first we talk about medicine because it's something of a pandemic. Then we talk about how technology played a role in all that. I think it's time, so we'll wait for the 00. Do you see a red band there? And
And we are
okay.
live.
Okay, greetings everybody, and a very cordial welcome to this lovely panel with us today on the theme Beyond Yesterday. Many celebrate today as World Students' Day, as it is the birth anniversary of Dr. Abdul Kalam, the 11th President of India, who the youngsters and children fondly remember as one of the best teachers. He was somebody who always believed in dreaming and dreaming with open eyes, so as to sculpt our dreams well into reality. He believed in a promising future with advanced science and technology in our country. He believed and made us believe in the power of belief, gave us all reasons to look beyond yesterday. Hence, GETI, believing in the power of hope, the power in our youth and strength of their vision, today has a fabulous panel of some young minds. Let me introduce them to you. Dr. Tanya Dikshit is pursuing MD, Doctor of Medicine in Radiodiagnosis from Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute, Lucknow. Shubhi Jain, member developer, productivity team, Oracle, ITC. Devanshi Srivastava, sociology graduate from the Delhi University, and Hemant Shankar Srivastava, a third year BTech student and an avid debater from Manipal Institute of Technology. On behalf of GETI, I welcome you all, lovely people. Okay, so strangely, I remembered some time back the story of Albert Camus' novel, The Plague. It all sounds familiar to us today. A very similar scenario is playing itself out right now. Camus was trying to describe how human beings respond to and live with a completely absurd, life threatening situation. Perhaps was he also trying to show how little it takes for a society to fall apart? In 1947, can you believe it? The publication dates of Camus' novel, we got a strong reminder of the unpredictability of life, as well as concern for how humanity was evolving. Have we been any close to this because of the challenges we have been facing recently? Let's hear today what these young minds have to say out of their experiences when we see this world beyond yesterday. Since we have been through a health related crisis recently, first of all, let's hear what the young doctor with us has to say. Dr. Tanya Dikshit, one who procured AIR 25 in the NEET PG exam, AIR 125 in NEET UG exam, recipient of the Best Resident Gold Medal during post-graduation, and recipient of a gold medal, a silver medal, and certificates of honor in 7 subjects during MBBS. But above the marvelous academic achievement, I see her as a profound thinker. So welcome, Dr. Tanya Dikshit, to the forum, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Toli ma'am, for the wonderful introduction. Good evening, everyone. GETI is a very, very wonderful initiative and a much needed initiative at this point of time. And I'm glad to be a part of this panel discussion tonight. So once I heard it from somebody that in this world full of uncertainties, the only thing that's constant is change. It might be a very small statement to make, but it has had a very huge impact on my perception ever since. We are all lucky to have been born in this era where we have witnessed such massive transformations in terms of science and technology. We have seen such massive cultural shifts which have actually transformed the way our society works. And Beyond yesterday is an umbrella term which has a very unique meaning to each one of us, and I'm glad to be here to be sharing my perspective with all of you from a doctor's lens. So, having been born to doctor parents where no conversation, no dinner table conversation was ever complete without learning about lives of medicals, I very early in my childhood years always knew that I wanted that white apron. Uh, Having been in this profession for the past 9 years, there's been a significant amount of change that has come about in terms of education and in terms of the patient care, which has tremendously evolved. And I would love to share some of my experiences with you all in regards to that. So, recollecting memories of my PMT days when I used to prepare for my pre medical tests, I remember carrying a huge bag full of heavy books to all my classes. So, from those days of blackboard teaching and rushing to libraries to scout for new information and material, we've actually come a long way forward in digitizing education completely. 4 years ago, when I entered into the field of working, professionally working, I realized that the tag of a doctor and the image of a white apron actually comes with a lot of responsibilities. We take a lot of life changing and life saving decisions every day for the patients. Uh, every time and everything that I've learned in these 9 years of my experience is something that I apply every day, and that has laid the foundation for everything that I learned today and I'm going to learn even in future. Talking about patients, the population today is pretty advanced. They're very tech savvy, and a lot of attention is actually paid to credentials and skill sets of doctors. So I believe that in today's era, we need to focus a lot more on developing skill sets, on developing a kind of education system which produces very proficient doctors. On one hand, where we have where technology has evolved to such an extent that it is with the help of artificial intelligence and kind of softwares, it has actually been possible to diagnose everything at molecular level, and at the same time there have been surgeries that are being performed all over the world without even human interventions. There's also a segment of society which fears that maybe this artificial intelligence will overtake the human race someday. Now, that's a big question that even the biggest debaters of the world haven't been able to solve. But that's not for me to answer. Somebody asks me, like, what is the mantra to stay in the game? What is the way to see the future? And my answer to any of them would be to change with the changing times and to help in that evolution. No matter what the circumstances are, and no matter how we work, the quintessential purpose of education always to prepare warriors for this war zone, which we call life, to prepare minds to conform, to adapt, and to innovate. Education should be and has always been about producing mentally, socially, professionally competent individuals. So, if I have to give a message to the youngsters about what they should think when they are in their formative years of education, is that there are no set rules to follow. There are no boundaries that you cannot cross. It is okay to think different, and it is best if you carve your own path. This pandemic has been a very testing time for all of us, and it has tested us tremendously from all corners and angles. But the upside would be that it gave me a very new perspective towards life, and I hope it has helped all of us to reset our life buttons and put things back into perspective. So here's us today thinking of beyond yesterday. Thank you.
That's amazing. And it was even more wonderful to hear you talk about digitized education, to talk about artificial intelligence, even when we heard a doctor talking, which brings to me the thought that yes, technology cannot maybe prevent the onset of a disease, but it can help prevent the spread. It can educate, warn, and empower those on the ground to be aware of the situation and noticeably lessen the impact. So, why not right here hear the perspective of a techie with us? Here, Miss Shubhi Jain. And she has done her BE Honors Computer Science and MSc Honors Mathematics from Birla Institute of Technology, received the Inspire Scholarship from the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, participated in spreading awareness against alcohol and drug abuse, taking lectures in schools and colleges and organized rallies. Being a part of the Abhigyan Education for All organization, she taught underprivileged school and college kids. She is passionate about writing and has a book of poems to her name. She is currently working with Oracle IDC. And now it's over to you, Shubhi. Let's begin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Rolly ma'am, for that introduction. Um, Now, from a perspective of a techie, firstly, I'd like to state that I recently became a full-time employer in Oracle. Before that, I was just a student studying in BITS. And before that, I also interned for a period of 5 months. And because of that, thankfully, I got the opportunity to experience office life. Because only for 2 months I had worked, and work from home started for all of us. And it was a huge transformation. Even before the lockdown started, the work from home was important for the safety of the employees. And the transition, although not seamless, but has been pretty good because we as technologically expert people or we as IT professionals were able to adapt to the shift, and that is what I see happening here as well. All of us being able to adapt to the situation, and that is what this pandemic has also taught us. No matter what the difficulty, we might complain every day, but at the end of it, we have to live with it, and it's better to see the positive side than to crib about it. So, yeah, when work from home started for all of us, I think I say for pretty much everyone that we were pretty satisfied with it because we get to work from the comfort of our home. And, we don't have to face the traffic every day and the general relief that comes from not having to travel to office. But slowly, especially when complete lockdown was imposed, the problems started coming in. And the major problem that we all faced was that while we were working from home, we were also working at home. So during the office hours, we were working at the office. And after that, we're doing all the household chores because there's no help around. And I think that was the story of each and every household, no matter what the profession. So, yes, work from home did make our life more hectic than it already was, leaving little to no time for personal experiments or, for your own hobbies. And then the social interactions were reduced to a minimum. We could hardly interact. Like initially, when work from home was imposed, the interactions were reduced to meetings and scheduled discussions. The lunches and the sharing of anecdotes and that personal touch was completely lost. Our relationship was dwindling into that of those of strangers. And I have recently been onboarded into a new company. I have not even met all my peers. I have not met my team. It's just an introductory session that we all had. We're still really strangers, and I've been here for more than a month now. And also, along with this social weirdness, we had longer working hours because the line that separated personal life from professional life completely vanished over time. We were working into the night, early in the morning. There was no set timetable, no set schedule. However, the situation isn't so grim because with the longer working hours, we got the choice to decide the working hours. It was not that we were stuck to that 9 to 6 or the 8 to 5 regime where we had to punch in and show our attendance. We could decide to work any time of the day, take our breaks, and relax whenever we wanted. As long as we are giving the outputs well within the deadlines. And so the productivity increased. You will see everywhere that the IT industry did not lose much while this work from home transformation was going on because of the efficiency and the productivity. Because we were given the flexibility and the choice to work according to our timings. Also, I would give a round of applause to all the employers, to all the companies who have made great effort to remove the social alienation between the employers. Because initially, when we went to office, we had lunch, we had water cooler talks and whatnot. But once this lockdown came about, once this work from home started globally, the global interactions increased because we were having global events now, which we didn't have before. We were having yoga sessions, bring your family to work, and tea and coffee chit chat. Something of this sort had never happened before, and the employers were trying to boost up our morale while we try to give our best and increase our efficiency every day. Practice the best work from home practices are there. And also, I think it gave all the employers, especially the startups, to build up an infrastructure where they can hire remotely, where they do not need an office in a particular country to hire employers from that country, where they can hire anyone from any place in the world and let them work remotely, let them be a part of the organization and still not have to travel long distances. And I believe personally, this pandemic gave me the opportunity to spend some time with my family. Because when college was about to end, that's the thing I said that now I won't get any more vacations. I won't be able to spend time with my parents. I guess I prayed a little too hard, but yes, I did get the chance to spend time with my parents, and I'll probably not get such a long time again. Brought us all closer to our families and taught us that despite not being physically present in front of each other, we can still stay connected. We can still make an effort from our side to avoid any sort of social alienation. And also, it gave us the time to bring out the creativity in us. Because until now, when you come from office, you don't feel like doing anything else. You just want to see something on Netflix and then, have your dinner, talk to your loved ones and go to sleep. But now that you save the time from traveling, you are in the comfortable atmosphere of your home, and there's a general relief of not being there at the office every time or not having to, stick to a particular regime. You get the chance to be creative. And I personally started making drawings, something which I have not done in a long, long time. So and although the transformation did bring with it some difficulties, but that's what change is all about. Change is never easy for anyone, and the only thing that we can do is adapt to it, take the best that's from it, and continue with it forward. Going forward, I believe this work from home regime is here, and also I believe that the stigma that was associated with work from home has been removed. So we believed that an employee working from home might just go 3 hours to work and relax the rest of the day. Now we know how work from home is, and we know how to deal with it and how to give our best through it. So yes, I believe this change has been good in a way, giving us all an opportunity to grow as an employee as well as an employer.
Shubhi, you very rightly talked about adaptation, the strongest of the human traits, we can say. And we can also see it as a skill today. The latest is adapting to the work life balance, as you mentioned, from inside the home, that too. And also the virtual interactions alongside bringing out all latent creativity, I must say. We never even realized we can be so creative about things, whether it's experimenting in the kitchen, or you can say going ahead and developing a reading habit, or maybe just, as you people call it, binging on the loads of episodes of a series, a teleseries at a stretch. Anyway, the pandemic, the crux of it is all is it has pushed the world to drastically reinvent the ways of coping with a new normal. But after the initial phase of complete overhaul, also, it is critical to understand that the short and long term impact is to be evaluated, and also the future measures. Can India, our country, emerge from this crisis with a refreshed perspective as far as education is concerned? And because we have a student with us over here, Hemant Shankar Srivastava. Let's hear Hemant now, who is a third year student of engineering at Manipal Institute of Technology. He is the vice president of Blank 101, the public speaking club of Manipal, and the team manager at Project Vision, one of the first augmented reality student projects in the country. That sounds so interesting. So happy to see the youngsters venturing into new arenas. And now I think we must hear from you, Hemant. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ronnie, ma'am, for having me here. So, as the other panelists have pointed out, a lot has changed in this pandemic. So, as we all know, 2020 has been a very challenging year in all regards. Not only did our lives come to an abrupt halt in March, but it also marked the end of the routine we were so aptly adjusted to. The most significant change in lifestyle, I think, was felt by all the students across the nation. Because as undergrads like us were preparing for our midterms or our festivals, the sudden chaos that followed brought an absolute cessation to all academic proceedings, and it, in my opinion, started a reboot phase. So, as we had the longest break from physical classes, social engagements took a back seat in every student's life. The sudden chaos that broke out in March and was followed very much by a chaotic chatter in April was succeeded by a numbing phase in May, where all the interactions about the pandemic had died down. Exams were indefinitely delayed, and we did not know what laid ahead in our future. So most students like me got a chance to break away from the unending competitive spirit of staying in college or preparing for entrances or boards, and we got a moment of respite to take a hard look at ourselves and look at the realities of education and its viability in the current atmosphere. So, um, given the current advancements in technology, I think every youngster today has become accustomed to trying out a new feature or discovering something new on a weekly basis, if not daily. And to aid this, we have the social media platforms that prepare a new fad every other day, which makes people search things up, look up on Google, and have this researching spirit become a part of their daily lives. Which brings me to my next point that education as a whole in this pandemic has primarily seen a shift from the traditional form of going through assessments using quizzes to a more research based, a more in depth understanding of how to deal with the problem. So, so one thing that became very clear is that we did need to shift from traditional approach of learning. One can no longer hope to stick to just textbook for studies at the moment because, frankly, most of us left our stuff back in hostels. We were thinking it was a 2 week holiday, but it's with 7 months now, and we're still at home. So, adoption of technology for imparting education became a normal daily job for all students, and it was only obvious that the faculty would take a newer approach in imparting their learning to us. So this paved the way for students to work on especially working in technological fields, to work on specific research-based problem statements, and it was a new way of for us students to understand what we were doing. Normally, in a classroom setting, we are bound to stick to just the assessment through examination. But now that get to work on real life problems, it brings us much closer to where we are using our education in a daily life. Although it's a very new phenomenon in technological institutes, whereas it has been employed on a larger scale in liberal arts and sociological subjects. I think that um, subjects such as engineering require a much more inclusive nature of going through research oriented approach to teaching, because even though we do study, lot of technical based subjects in our core, we really never get to apply them in a normal setting, in a real life situation. And that has been a problem for most of us looking for jobs, because even though you know the concepts, you still have to undergo a lot of training to understand how you're going to apply them. So once the pandemic hit, everybody was bound to their social media, to their laptops and their phones, and so were the professors. It's a marvel of, like, I'll say, the modern situation that our professors who did not have any experience of dealing with a smartphone are now using online whiteboards, discussion forums, multiple channels come up every day on different platforms like Teams, Google Meet, and they're able to go through this very smoothly. So the phase that we believed that okay, we might not have classes for months and months on, I think our teachers have proved that whatever comes their way, they'll be able to handle it, and education should go on as it always has. Uh, since I belong to Manipal and it's a basically tech college. Even then, our professors were not very well versed with the technologies that we use at the tip of our thumbs. That we have them and we are very comfortable with them. Yet again, they achieved this feat in a matter of weeks. The things that we have been trying to teach our parents for years, our professors did it in like weeks, which is very commendable. And which also proves a very important point that technology no longer is a barrier in education, it's an opportunity. And this opportunity has been gaining pace in the past few years with the advent of smart classes, which I believe some schools are trying to incorporate while so many already have them. And they provide a very infographic way of delivering education. I remember being shown how a little generator, a little motor in a bicycle works back in eighth grade. And it was really amazing because I did not know how these things work. You just see a box and it produces electricity. You're not sure how things are going to happen. But these are technologies that provide us the opportunity to go around the whole base, like not get confined to textbook explanations, which for someone who's not, which for most people are very difficult to understand at times. So I believe that the current generation is very much fortunate to be a part of a history in the making. A period like this, which was never thought of before, has come to a forefront and provided a new look on how they'll be achieving their goals, their targets in life. And uh, education now has left the binds of notebook and has properly entered the digital space. So this has not only been a year of the pandemic, but a year of monumental changes in the way we impart and receive education. The onus now, I believe, is in the hands of the current generation to carry the digital movement forward, and also in the hands of our professors, our teachers around the world to keep pushing for more technology in education. Thank you.
Absolutely. I agree to all points of view here. We heard about medicine, we heard about health, technology, education, and a new understanding everywhere. It's great to get those positive vibes from this panel before us. But I think somewhere at the end of it all, it is a reality that wherever there is light, there is some darkness too. And there are two ways of looking at it all the time. When there have been positives, and it's heartening to hear about that, those positives from the young panelists here, there has also been social stress caused so far. You know, it has many faces. There are reasons resulting from traveling restrictions, much of which should be also mentioned. There is disruption of cultural celebrations in a way, limited healthcare facilities. Dr. Tanya must be having an understanding on that, interruption in regular health services, leading to anxiety and fear among the population, the social distancing with friends and family, and so many more. Definitely, there is a solution to it in the form of virtual interactions, which we all are resorting to. It's quite healing also in a way. But then, with this thought or with balancing the negatives and the positive, Do we get a different perspective from somebody who has studied sociology as a subject? How do we move forward from here? What is the understanding of our young sociology graduate, Devanshi Srivastava? I'd like to hear Devanshi, who likes to imagine a radically different world based on ecological consciousness, social justice, and democratic values. She tries to challenge the existing power hierarchies through poetry. She has researched and written about gender and sexuality at the undergraduate level, while also being part of women and queer collectives. We are really glad to have you here, Devanshi, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, ma'am. Also, thanks to GETI for having invited me here. And I would like to begin with actually the heading that is beyond yesterday. It, I think it's profound in a lot of manners. So if you translate that to Hindi, it becomes Kal ke Pare. And when you see it like that, it is not just that कल जो जा चुका है, लेकिन वो कल भी जिसे हम बहुत अच्छी तरीके से जानते हैं, हर काम को हम कल पे टाल देते हैं क्योंकि वो कल बहुत ही फ़ेमिलियर है हमारे लिए। So when we say कल के परे, my imagination is beyond the familiar yesterday that is gone and the familiar tomorrow that we know very well. And that is why that brings me to the point where man introduced me as he's responsible for bringing in a critical perspective, and I think that is what my discipline has changed me in to see how a lot of factors in the society, how there's a lot of social injustice, and how even when we are talking about education or digitization or health facilities or all of these factors, there is a question of access, and there is a question of whether of who is able to access all of these facilities and everything. So I think when I imagine yesterday, I am talking about a move beyond a world where the clothes on our back are made by malnourished children, working children, where the houses that people like us we are living in are not built by people who have to walk for miles and miles to reach back to their own homes, where the food on our tables is not grown by people who are on the brink of suicide, who are starving and are not able to receive proper prices and things like that. So, and when we imagine such a world, I think the education also needs to be reimagined. And there is a revolutionary potential in education that we must not lose. And and education which is not centered on exams, is not centered on certificates or degrees and marks in a competitive environment where my growth or where my progress, my unilinear, my singular progress depends on competition with my fellow classmates, my fellow learners. Instead, an education which enables and empowers all of us to move collectively forward, and all of this with an honoring and such an education which enables us to honor people who are with us, our communities, people belonging to all castes, classes, genders, sexualities, um, and moving forward with all of them. So I think that's the beginning note that I would like to set, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion.
Absolutely. It's really wonderful to hear those thoughts, those words coming straight from your heart, Devanshi. Most of the people, they don't think around us, they just follow. But it's said only the thinkers are leaders. And I am really elated to hear these young minds having felt so much, having thought so much, and with such grace you have expressed it. Would you like to question each other? Are there some things which are not said or mentioned or left to be understood? Devanshi, you would want to know anything? Since you see this whole society as, as the comprehensive whole, and then there are so many things that, take their individual places inside it. So as parts of the whole, anything that strikes you, anything you would want us, me included, to be taken up, expressed, we can have it clearly from you or anybody else also here.
I think one thing that we have consistently mentioned is, of course, the digitization of education. And education, I see education as a revolutionary democratizing force. And so can digitization also be. However, coming from Delhi University, one of the issues that was raised even during the pandemic was that of online exams and online education, and about the question of access to such digital education and digital resources. So, my question is mainly towards the people from the tech background about how we are imagining how we are imagining to deal with such questions of access and the so that all of us can learn and grow together.
Okay, I believe that's the question for me. Was it for ma'am?
Oh,
Right.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Hemant.
Okay, so if I heard correctly, your question is how do we democratize technology, sorry, education online, right? Um, so I think one of the initiatives taken by CBSE was starting channels, TV channels that impart education throughout the country. They have lessons going on a daily basis. And that is an initiative I think none of us could have thought of, even CBSE would not have thought of till a few months ago, to impart lessons on TV. Uh, it's a very given the state of the country, given the size of the country, we know that even though we might not have uh, telephone lines in places of the country, we surely can have televisions working. So one of the best ways is through televisions and radio. Specific channels on radio, specific channels on television are doing a very good job in imparting that. Furthermore, I believe that the onus is also on the government to provide a few computers per village for students to have their classes in a organized, scheduled way. So I think a lot is being done and a lot more can be done. So yeah.
Shubhi would want to add something here.
Yeah, so I would say that still on the growing stage, because until now everything was limited to blackboard and chalk training, and the change has been sudden for everyone. So it will take some time for it to reach everyone as well. But still, almost like quite a number of students across the country have been able to access their lessons, have been able to study digitally. Even those who had difficulty initially were able to arrange resources, were able to get help from their friends or maybe from the government. And as Hemant correctly pointed out, CBSE has taken this initiative, which is a great initiative, and if supported, it can be taken forward, it can be taken to the next level, where you know everyone can get the education, everyone can know how to use a computer, because before anyone can educate themselves through digital medium, you need to know how to use the technology itself. So I think what is the need is that in areas where which are not yet that good, where the technology is not that forward, we need people or volunteers who go and train these people in such technologies, who teach them how computers are used or how a smartphone is used and how these things empower them and how these things are actually useful for them. And not everything about technology is bad for
Right.
us. So once this message reaches, I think more people will try and adapt to it. More people will leave behind their fear of technology, especially who are unaware of its uses. And yes, with the help of the government and other voluntary organizations and NGOs, we can always have the infrastructure where they can get access to
Right.
these
Thank you
technologies.
so much for bringing in how it needs to be a community effort towards this direction.
Absolutely. This is a very well taken point from this conversation here. And when you talk of the community effort, when you talk of technology, education, I'm sure everybody has this thought at the basis of the discussion that it's all towards the human being. So when we talk of this, you can say the reality that exists in the form of a human, we also cannot ignore a very important aspect, though people take it as a buzzword these days. But for most of us who have that kind of sensitivity, we see it as the most important to be dealt with now. And I'm talking about emotional wellness of a human being. So when we talk of technology, great, education, even better, uh, revolutionizing practices, bingo. But then, where are we heading to? And still, do we hold emotional wellness of human beings as beings at the proper pedestal? Or are we in this humdrum losing the sight of it in some way? So, though the doctor we have with us today here is somebody who deals basically with medicine, but I'm very sure she'll have some perspective about mental health or emotional wellness of a being during the course of this tough phase, before that, and how do you see this particular concept, or you can say any effort towards emotional wellness of a person, being taken up properly or not? Can there be more efforts? Is there room for, you can say, undertaking efforts in this direction, and rightfully so? What is your perspective, having been, very closely associated with this pandemic? She has worked in the COVID wards. She has seen all kinds of realities, the downside of it. You can say the happiness when they see off a patient after he or she is being cured. So it's been a good balance of everything that there has been, but it has definitely been unnerving for the doctors too, as much as it is for the patient. So how do you see emotional wellness of like everybody, of a human being, regardless of
Uh,
the situations we are in?
I believe emotional wellness is one of the most neglected aspects of our lives, doctors, non-doctors alike, whether it's the students, whether it's children, whether it's the older generation. I think emotional aspect is something that we have always not to discuss, and that is something that we are not very helpful in when we have to, like help someone or give advice to somebody about. It's revolutionizing actually to see a lot of people coming up with their mental issues, talking about them on social platforms, on social media. A lot of celebrities are talking about it, and we're seeing also a lot of negative aspects of these kind of mental issues, which are creating both a positive and negative impact on the mindset of the people, which I think got accentuated during the time of the pandemic. But it's positive in a way to see that people are actually coming up and talking about it. People actually now, if there are so many wellness centers out there, there are so many kinds of therapies that people are going to these days whenever they feel unwell mentally. But at the same time, if I talk about my own life, this phase has been very, very stressful. There have been people who've been sitting at home, they've lost their jobs. There have been people who have not met their families. There have been people who have fallen sick, who have lost their loved ones, and I definitely believe it's been a very, very tough time for each one of us. From the point of view of being a doctor who has also been on COVID duty for almost like 30 days, I've been isolated at least 3 times, have gotten myself tested with that nose picking at least like 7 or 8 times. It's been quite traumatic that way. But what was important for me was to um, realize that this thing is transient. What I realized was this is something that we have to grow out of. So I kept my support system strong, and that's what I would recommend to everybody. You need to talk, you need to discuss with people. I think everybody has got tensions in life, and everybody does get frustrated at some point of time, whether it is about career, whether it is about life, whether it is about money, whether it is about relationships. So the important aspect of it is to talk about it, is to read up, is to listen to people, and to seek therapy or to seek treatment. So I think the best way is compassionate to others, be kind, and help wherever. Take help and help others. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope we all are on the same page when this is discussed and said. And though I know that this discussion and this exchange of views and perspectives can go on on endlessly, I'm thoroughly enjoying being with these young people over here. There are constraints in terms of time. So
But
before we
before we wind up, I have a question for Roli ma'am.
yes, yeah.
I would like to know from you, like you've been an educator for quite a while now. So, what have the changes that you have experienced as an educator in yourself and the world around you?
Okay, well, so just like you talked about all the various spheres of life, aspects of life, they have undergone a change. We can say, to some extent, a tidal change. As an educator, I also felt that we all have come a long way from how we thought about things in the beginning, how we practice things like a few years ago, how we set goals, and how we adopted procedures. So, definitely, most of the educators have undergone, I will say, an evolution, and we all have got an understanding that we must evolve. Just like Shubhi talked about adaptability, this is something which in our education system, I'm very sure all the educators have learned about it, have got new understanding about it. We have always heard, from different corners, calls about uh, competing with others not being a very healthy practice, the rat race after marks, not a very healthy practice, but somehow mindlessly, we can say, or under the garb of some practices and some beliefs, we've all been indulging in that. But one thing which I, as an educator, observed happening around me and in which I have started believing more ardently is that one must never lose belief in oneself. You need intrinsic motivation for that. And as you said, there has to be a support system. There have to be people around you who you need to look up to for that. They can be teachers in your life, your friends, your parents. They can be anybody. And in addition to that, there has to be that feeling to only better yourself as a student, as a homemaker, as any role in the family you might be, seeing yourself in, sister, brother, husband, wife, anything. We must better ourselves one step beyond what we have been, as far as abilities are concerned, refined perspectives are concerned, evolved personalities are concerned. I think we must take that step, and that is the best learning which I actually see happening all around. Hemant talked about his professors, adapting to changing the ways, the modus operandi of teaching in a very short span of time. It has happened with younger children and their teachers also. So everybody is adapting, everybody is pushing their limits, and that is the best part of it. As an educator, I have always been open to learn as much as I can alongside teaching. There's a quote which says, "When one teaches, two learn." Right? So my students very well know that I learn more than them when we have been together in the classes. I've always looked forward to being an English teacher, creative discussions, at times arguments also, exchange of ideas. And every time it happened, I walked out of the conversation enriched. So I have seen a lot of change, all for positive, refined understanding, and that is the same that I'm seeing, in all my the fraternity members all around, and it becomes all the more a happier feeling when I see young people like you thinking about it, wanting to know about it, wanting to explore these areas. I absolutely feel that the nation is in really promising hands, and no rhetorics here, and no fake appreciation here. It's coming right from the bottom of the heart. So that is it. And I think this pandemic, the
Our
crisis,
education system is in great hands, I'd say, ma'am.
and that's just it's your generosity. It's now, you can say, a matured perspective, because I remember people, including my daughter, how you people and me ourselves, we have seen teachers in our school years, and how we've been aversive to the school life, other than where it made us connect with peers and friends. So yes, it is with age that this kind of understanding comes, and something circumstances also teach us. So it is growth at every step in life. It is an opportunity to let yourself evolve if you see things in the right perspective. That is how I see things, and I would love to hear more from anybody else over here. If we have left you with any thoughts, that discussion of any kind, addressing in any way.
I'd like to ask Tanya a question.
Yeah.
So there was this incident back a year ago where one of my friends, he got a seizure, and amongst the 20, 30 of us present, only one person who was from South Africa knew how to give first aid. So are we as a country lacking in the knowledge of very basic medical care, which obviously includes first aid? And how do we tackle it?
I believe there are two aspects to it. First is I believe basic training should be given to each and every individual. Secondly, we need to motivate all the people to keep learning these kind of things. This need not be a part of the curriculum in every college or in every stream, People also have to be motivated towards learning these kind of things. I know there are a lot of videos, there is a lot of online material on all of this, on learning the basic life sciences. When you have to save a patient, it may be a seizure, it may be myocardial infarction or heart attack, as we call it, the next time. So these are things in which we also have to be motivated enough to learn it on our own, even if it is not a part of the curriculum, even if you're not getting marks on it, even if our professors are not forcing us to teach it or maybe take our vibe on it, first thing. Secondly, I don't expect everybody to know everything about medical science, because then everybody would be a doctor, which is not possible technically, because we need people from other branches as well. So the second thing is maybe strengthen the medical system as such that whenever there is an emergency, somebody should come to rescue the patient as fast as possible. That's something that is not for me to act upon as of now. But yes, I would definitely expect the government to better the services in the country. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Together we can. When together we can think, then together we can make certain things, increase in priority list and see them getting materialized with time. So that was it. Time is ticking away fast. So I think We must put a halt to all our thought processes and lovely interactions for some time over here. And what I have gathered from this lovely conversation and this lovely time together is that, yes, at the same time of having exposed society's dysfunction, the current health crisis invites us to rethink our future. This crisis has opened doors for us to create more compassionate societies. I hope everybody will agree with me here. The kind of societies that acknowledge how we are all connected and how our planet should be managed for the generations to come. I heard somebody once said, humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together, all things connect. And therefore, I'll say crises do not necessarily only bring the forces of regression and paranoia to the fore, they can also create greater solidarity. We have seen many times over that people unite, or let's say when people unite, miracles happen. And we are now on the cusp of many uh, critical decisions. And I think we must part with this thought over here. All the best to my lovely panel. Thank you for being with us, for joining GETI in this
Thank
climbing
you, ma'am,
course.
for having us here. It was a great
Complete
experience.
pleasure.
Thank
Complete
you so
pleasure
much
for
for
us.
inviting.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you,
you
ma'am.
so much. And I think it's time we look, think, and act together and beyond yesterday. Agreed?
Of
Absolutely.
course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, at this note of agreeing to a common point and with great consensus and positivity, let's part ways to meet again sometime in the future. Till then, all the best. Take care of yourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good
Thank
night, ma'am.
you. Bye. Good night to all of you.
Good night.